Because he said the sign acknowledged that racism in police force exists, and the focus has to be on reviving trust between cops and the black community. He added that reform of the police department was important and needed. However...
Wait. You said restoring trust?
Yeah, restoring trust.
Do people ever really trust the police?
Could they ever trust the police? Yeah, they could.
I don't think black people ever trusted the
I
police.
think they could.
I mean, I didn't say it's not possible in the future.
I think they...
Highly unlikely.
Well, let me say this.
But I don't think black people ever trusted the police.
But let me say this. The level of the trust can increase rather than decrease.
Okay.
Let me say that. I think the level of trust is very low right now, and that level could be increased drastically. And it's never going to be, it's never going to be 100%. But if you say it's only like 25%, I think it could be in the 70s, 80%.
Oh, I doubt that.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a serious historical legacy. I don't think people are going to ever really trust the police. And you know what's happened to crime since the police almost have gone on strike or whatever they're doing. They're not issuing as many tickets.
I think trust is so low now. It's easy to get to reach the high, to increase the trust by doubling whatever it is now. And this did not go over well with everyone. However, Fraternal Order of Police President Howard McQuillan took the narrow position of other police unions who seem not to be able to see beyond their own concerns. McQuillan emailed the mayor a fiery retort, which was secured and reported by the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And here's what it is. By Mayor Piduto labeling us corrupt and mediocre, which he did not, and now our current chief insinuating that we are now racist, which he did not, merely by the color of our skin and the nature of our profession, I say enough is enough, the email said. He added that the poor morale among officers need to be addressed and is made worse by pandering to the community at the expense of the police community. McClay apologized in an email to the union, but did not back away from his position, saying that it is statistical fact that policing efforts have a disparate impact on communities of color, which is absolutely true. The predominant pattern of our city increased violence involved black victims as well as actors, he said. If we are to address this violence, we must work together with the communities of color. McClay pledged to meet with commanders of the city patrol zones to talk these tough issues through. Meanwhile, amid this bickering, blacks in Pittsburgh rage over shooting of African Americans under questionable circumstances. So, I mean, you see,
yeah,
when when if someone that didn't look like the chief had made that statement, what do you think would have happened? Or what do you think normally happens?
Well, then if they were black, they would have been, up for scrutiny, a racist, problem starter, troublemaker.
No.
But then that doesn't matter because they've turned on de Blasio. That's amazing how, these people turn. You have a civilian who's running the police department, but the police in New York act like they're their own separate entity,
But you know what I would like to ask Patrick Lynch? I would like to ask Patrick Lynch this. Mr. Lynch, if my son and your son is walking down the street, do you believe, I'm not going to ask him that, because he's going to, do you believe both of them are going to get equal treatment from the cops if one is walking on the left-hand side and one is walking on the right-hand side, not doing anything illegal, and the police think they may be doing something illegal? Are they going to treat his son the same way they treat my son?
And what do you think Mr. Lynch would say? Of course they
Yes.
would.
Yes. I think he'd say yes.
You think he would agree that your son wouldn't get the preferential treatment?
No, I think he would say they will both get the same type of treatment. Because, he's looking through rose-colored glasses.
No, I think that some people just have a different perception of what is happening than you and I would, It's just a different perception.
But you know, Marjorie, to be honest with you, as I said to you before, growing up in Trinidad, I grew up through different lenses. I grew up seeing things very differently than black Americans that grew up in this country. When I grew up, I didn't have to deal with racism. I really didn't have to deal with black and white. I just didn't have to deal with it. And I never looked at people from a color perspective because that just wasn't, my history. And if I go into the rich neighborhood in Trinidad with the big mansions and $1 million houses, was black people. If I go into the big companies, some of the CEOs are black people. So it never really, had to deal with it until I came to America.
Well, that's a privilege that some people have. It really is, even though it's supposedly not a privilege.
What's a privilege?
To not think that wealth or intelligence or ability is
intelligence. How did intelligence
limited,
and ability get into this?
Is limited to white people. That's a privilege to live that way. Do you understand?
No, I don't.
When I came here from Michigan, so I grew up in a segregated place, and I didn't see any white people, and the ones I did see were poorer than we. Yes.
You grew up middle class.
Yes, but it was segregated. So
I grew up poor.
Well, okay, but I grew up and not thinking that poverty had something to do with being black. The doctors, the dentists, the orthodontists, the teachers I saw, everybody was black. This was due to segregation. So I didn't even think that there was segregation. I don't know. You think about white people, but you really don't. They just didn't really exist. And then I grew up during the time when there was still a black power movement and say it loud and, all of that, and a positive message that was out to us. And so I didn't have to think that there was something wrong. But when I came here and students said, "Oh, you're the first black teacher I've had," or "There's no such thing as a black lawyer or a black judge." These are the things that I heard when I first got here in 1986. Mm-hmm. So, it was deliberate to move to this community because I just wanted to have my children grow up around black people that, were doing something. So,
now, what do you think?
It's a privilege, Anselm, to not know that to not believe that there's something wrong with you because of your color. But a lot of people grow up believing there's something wrong because the people in charge that they deal with, be that their teachers or their doctors or any of that other stuff, they're all white.
So what you're saying is that we were not oppressed to believe that, we can be the best that we can be.
Yes, because if you grow up in a school, yeah? So let's take Columbia High School, your favorite discussion, leveling it. So if you are in level regular, I'm in the regular classes, and then you think, oh, well, the AP or the honors classes are mostly white, right? Mm-hmm. That means white people are smart, and I'm not in there, so I must not be smart. There's this thinking that's going on in your head, even though it's kind of irrational, but it makes sense.
Makes sense to who?
To the person thinking it. Look, this person is white, and he's always in honors classes. Now I'm black, and everybody else in this class who's in the regular class is not in an honors class.
The lower level class.
So in the lower level class. So white people must be smart. That's how people think. Yes, A plus B. Otherwise, then this is the way C must be.
So are you saying that?
So if you grow up someplace that is all black
and Africa thinks differently?
Yes, I think so. But
that they don't have that inferiority complex?
They may not have that same inferiority complex. However, they are marred by colonial thinking and a colonial mentality.
And what is that?
This is a long discussion. I don't know if we should get into that right
No, but
now.
you talk about the colonial mentality. What is that? That the white person is superior?
Yeah, in a way you people grow up
But
thinking.
I grew up. I never had that.
If you would have to shed
We
all.
had English. The English were ruling over us in.
That's right. And
but we never had. I mean,
but what did you ever wonder? Like, I'm not English, but I speak English.
I wonder why we had to learn about Sir Walter Raleigh and Sir Francis Drake. What the hell? Why the hell I gotta learn about these Englishmen? But
just like someone's, there is like, but I think you're just in denial of some of that, and maybe it's because you're a guy or something.
I'm in denial.
Yeah, you're in denial of
What?
some of it.
Of what?
Well, I mean, that there's colorism in the Caribbean, that people can, so-and-so's dark and so-and-so's light, and this person
But
was
I never
light.
had to deal with that.
I know.
That's
well,
what I'm telling you. It wasn't
like
my
I
experience.
said, some of that might be because of your gender.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's something that women are more attuned to because they have to hear stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that there are guys that I remember this guy who's Charlie Lewis, who we grew up with. And Charlie Lewis was about as dark as this computer. And, he was just always harassed and picked on. And then there was a girl who was very light, whose hair was, curly, not, nappy curly. And Beth Ann Moore, and
Hey Beth, if you're listening, she's talking
Beth Ann,
about
will
you.
you take this to the office? She always got to take stuff to the office.
She get the privilege to do the good stuff.
She had the privilege to do all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So
Was
I
she
mean,
like
you
a
notice
prefect or
that
something?
stuff.
Was she like?
No, we didn't have prefects, but yeah, I mean, she was the one that if there was a play, the Beth Ann was the head of the play. Every time there was a homecoming queen, for the most part,
she was the queen.
No, she left before that. But throughout school, in a segregated black town, all black people all around, it was a person that was light-skinned with long hair was a person that was considered best. And I mean, I noticed this, and I rationalized and tried to figure out why people thought that, and because it's the closer you are to white, then the more privileges you had, even though you were still black if you were around white people. But the black people, if you were light skinned, you had something going on.
You see, I guess
And you're telling me that didn't happen in Trinidad?
Listen, my experience. I can only speak from my experience of my 18 years in Trinidad and Tobago. As poor as we were, where they dropped the OR, we were just poor. I mean, not like you. We were. You. M comes before P, right?
M comes before. Yes.
Yeah. Well, middle class comes before poor. Right. So, as poor as we were, we never really experienced, any oppression, so to speak. Right? It might be a class distinction, but it was never oppression, never racism. I never faced that in all my 18 years in Trinidad and Tobago. I never faced it until I came to America.
Yes, but the oppression and the colorism and knowing that, Beth Ann is pretty because she's light-skinned, or, people thinking that was the supreme thing to be.
It is a matter of lack of consciousness and awareness. People are walking in their sleep and see what they want to see. Mm-hmm. You're right. They see what they want to see. So, and listen, there is discrimination in this world. There is racism. There is oppression. Right?
Indeed.
The police look at individuals through different lenses. And you were here when we broadcasted one with the two protesters. The guy.
No.
Yeah, there were two protesters. They were protesting.
I saw that article, but I never read it.
Yeah, they were marching, and You know what? Before we go to time check, the time is